Hello, welcome back to Watch This First. Today, we are going to talk about the Jeep Grand Cherokee from 1999 to 2004, break down its common issues and reliability. This Jeep has the tried and true 4-liter inline-6 engine, and it's almost perfectly balanced. But with that said, this Jeep still has issues that you should be aware of if you're potentially going to buy one of these cars or if you're having issues that you're trying to diagnose. So let's get started. I actually owned a 2002 WJ Jeep Grand Cherokee back in the day. Me and my buddy bought it broken down. It was overheating. We went ahead and replaced the radiator, which did not fix the overheating issue. Basically, the electric fan had reverse polarity and it was spinning backwards. That was just an off-case scenario of what was wrong with the Jeep. But after that, it ran perfect. Zero issues. It had 220,000 miles. You may be off-roading a Jeep or simply driving in the Florida heat and bam, rough idle or no start. Basically, since the engine bay is so tight in these trucks and even the standard Cherokees, the heat can vaporize the fuel within the fuel injectors before it's actually used. The fix to this is to install a fuel injector heat shield and insulation to prevent the heat from vaporizing the fuel before it hits the spark. You could also add a hood vent, which would increase the airflow within the engine bay. But a quick and temporary fix, if your car won't start, is to open the hood and let it cool down. Bam! No heat in your Jeep? Well, it could be your blend door actuators. Most likely the blend door because it seems to be the Achilles heel of these Jeeps. You may think you had to take apart the entire dash to get to the blend door. You don't. There's actually a pretty cool video out there on how to replace a blender with a shortcut which will make the process 100 times easier. I'll link the video down below so you can check it out, and for your convenience I'll also add all the parts down below as well. If your horn doesn't work, your cruise control doesn't work, and the airbag light illuminates on your dash, then your clock spring may have gone in the bin. If you live in a strict state, then you may not be able to get your car registered with the illuminating light on the dash. Well, the clock spring is located within the steering wheel itself. Chris Fix made a fantastic video on this process, and of course I'll link that below as well. And you'll need a new clock spring and a steering wheel puller to get this job done. There is an annoying and lingering issue with these Jeeps. Basically starting it up and it's shutting off thinking the car is being stolen. Basically the SCIM module or the computer system that detects the magnet within the key malfunctions and doesn't detect the magnet correct and well, does not allow your car to start because it thinks it's being stolen. You could disconnect the battery and reset the system and hope it works after 10 to 15 minutes, or you could simply go to a website called allcomputerresources.com to grab yourself a SCIM delete kit, which is something I would definitely do if I had this issue. Let's talk about the 4.7-liter V8. This engine has a slew of issues. DE in the garage has a great video talking about all the cooling issues he had to deal with.
Once again.
And he is a hilarious dude.
Yeah, all right.
So I'll go ahead and check out his video down below, especially if you're thinking about getting a Jeep Grand Cherokee with a 4.7-liter. He talks about how the thermostat needs to be installed properly or you have a leak, how the hydraulic cooling fan that cools the radiator is powered by power steering fluid, and essentially if you don't take care of the cooling system, you'll be dropping valve seats, which will ultimately tear up the entire engine if you don't replace and fix those valve seats before they start chewing up the rest of the engine. Now, if you drop a valve seat, one, you'll lose compression. It won't have a cylinder working properly. And two, if you keep driving it, you could ultimately tear up your pistons and need an entire engine rebuild. This issue isn't overly common if you take care of the engine, but there are companies who can repair it, or you may have to just buy yourself a new head. And you could also have a lifter tick, and if it's ticking, fix it. Or you could have to do an engine rebuild as well. There is a lot of hate with these 4.7-liter V8s, and the people who work on these V8s loves them. In my opinion, if you're not mechanically inclined, don't get the 4.7, get the 4.0. These Jeeps, just like the Wrangler and the Cherokee, can develop death wobble. One major cause of this is the track bar bushings wearing out, and you can just replace that bar, which is fairly straightforward. Or potentially this bolt coming loose and allowing the bar to move way too much. And all you have to do is basically tighten it. The rear main seal can also leak, and it's actually not very hard to replace. It's just a bit intimidating. You have to basically remove the oil pan and drop the oil pan to get where the rear main seal is located. And I'll link a video of this process down below. The WJ transmission has been known to have issues as well, mainly due to them not being properly maintained. If the Jeep is having harsh shifts, it may not be too late to do a transmission flush and replace the oil filter. Doing proper maintenance on these transmissions is essential to keeping them running long term. And if you put large tires on these Jeeps, like overly large, then you're basically putting more wear on this transmission, which will make it go out prematurely as well. But the biggest opponent to this transmission is heat. So one of the best modifications you can do, essentially if you're doing any kind of off-roading, towing, or long drives, is adding an external oil cooler with an electric fan added to it. The quadra drive system has an issue with the viscous coupler within the transfer case going bad. Basically, if your T-case is making noise, clicking, or chirping the wheels during tight corners, it's probably gone bad. You'll need to replace the viscous coupler to fix that issue. You'll have to remove the transfer case, open it up, and replace the coupling. Your four-wheel drive should still work, however, you'll just have binding wheels while you're driving during corners. Other miserable issues. Rust on the frame, and especially the rear control arms can rust off the frame. The liftgate shocks wear out, which is pretty typical with any older vehicle. And the liftgate sensors that tell the computer that the liftgate is shut may also be going bad as well. And if your liftgate sensors are going bad, then the dome lights will stay on and ultimately kill the battery. And if you kill the battery so many times, the battery's toast, and those are expensive. There's actually a video that fixes this issue without spending any money, and I'll link that down below as well. The window regulator may fail and your window may slide downwards. Not a very fun job to do, but definitely doable by a DIYer. And the pre-2001 Jeep Grand Cherokees have an issue with warped rotors. So if you get pre-2001, expect to buy aftermarket ones or just upgrade to post-2001. In my opinion, the Jeep Grand Cherokee is a pretty fantastic car if you get the 4.0. It's fantastically balanced, very long-lasting engine. And I've seen many of them lasting well over 400,000 miles, which is pretty crazy. I've seen quite a few people with their transmissions lasting over 300,000 miles, but that is pretty rare. No way around it, I would expect to replace the transmission around 250 to 300,000 miles, or even before if the person with a Jeep dogged it out insanely. But Jeep Grand Cherokee is an awesome car. It's beautiful, luxurious for what it is, and it's a budget off-road rig. I'll definitely consider buying one myself. Guys, if this video helped you out, then I'll see you in the next video. Like and subscribe, that always helps me out, and I basically make these videos to help out as many people as I possibly can without people spending money, and this is my outlet to do that. Guys, this is Chris AutoMotivate. Always appreciate and respect one another. We are all equal, and don't forget that. I'll see you next time.